Welcome in to Chicago Bears Now. My name is Harrison Graham. Happy Thursday, everybody. A lot going on. NFL free agency buzz. Trey Hendrickson's requesting a trade. I got a new Bears mock draft. We got a ton to get to here on a Thursday afternoon. Appreciate everybody rocking and rolling with us here today. Shout out your city. Let us know where you guys are tuning in from. Cullen, next time we're live, unless there's crazy breaking news, free agency will be here, so it's going to be a crazy 3 or 4 days here.
That it will. Welcome in, everybody, and yeah, I mean, it's free agency. Harry's been hyping me up behind the scenes. I mean, listen, apparently Bears Now gets pretty crazy day one and really the whole week of free agency, so I'm excited. I'm pumped for it. I hope Bears Now crew is ready to bring it as well because, listen, man, I'm down to party. This offseason, this free agency period is really going to set up this team heading into the 2025 NFL Draft, and yeah, man, I'm ready for it.
Should be a lot of fun. And what is this? Never mind. Money says Rockford. We got Zach and Appleton. What's up, Parley? Scott. We got Newski in Chicago. Nate in Champaign, Illinois. We got Coco in Chicago. Oz in Northbrook. Appreciate it, Oz. Ryan in Chandler, Arizona. Old Hickory, Tennessee from Michael Wash. OKC from Snowied. Joe P. in Jonesboro, Arkansas. By the way, go vote on the live poll question. Would you trade something that adds up to a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson? So not necessarily the number 10 pick, because I probably wouldn't do that. But, would you trade a 2 and a 3? Would you trade next year's first? Let us know if you guys would do that by voting on the poll. And then also answer this. Do you want Drew Dalman if he exceeds $15 million per year? Type Y for yes, type in for no. Colin and I have been debating this. It's been an office discussion. There's been all kinds of rumors. Are the Bears going to go all in on Drew Dalman? 15 or more per year, Y for yes. If not, in for no. Colin, I think you're still in the... You'd pay a little more than 15.
I think, yeah. I listen, I'm not going crazy with it. Like, I don't think I would give him Creed Humphrey money. But if it came down to it, and you're nickel and diming over, say it's $16 million a year, I mean, God, it'd be tough. Like, even 18, like, I wouldn't do it. Like, I wouldn't be rushing to the table with it, but I'd have conversations about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's tough. I ultimately did predict, if you tuned in, yesterday to our live show breaking down the Joe Thuney news, I think the Bears are going to sign Drew Dalman. I think you're in the camp. I don't know if you've changed your opinion, but you were kind of hesitant to see if they actually would.
Yeah, my initial thought after the Thuney trade was I kind of feel like they're going to be out on Dalman with the price going up. Now there seems to be conflicting rumors. I don't know. It feels 50-50. I could see it both ways. I don't think he's a perfect scheme fit, but it's a supply and demand issue too. It's not like there's 8 centers out there that you can kind of pick and choose from. I mean, you got a couple. You got Dalman, who's probably the top of the market guy, a couple other decent starting options, and then a lot of like stopgaps. So, it's a beggars can't be choosers situation. The Bears probably should have drafted a center at some point last year. It was a good draft to get one. So we'll see. We shall see. I get nervous flirting with Creed Humphrey money for a guy who is just – it's not that he's just not Creed Humphrey. I don't think he's that close. Like, I think he's a good football player. Do you want to pay the, 11th best center in the NFL close to top of the market money? I know that's the cost of free agency, but, like, is it though? Like, this feels extreme. It feels like – this center group is so bad that Drew Dalman – I mean, did Drew Dalman ever in life think he would be getting discussed this much? I mean, he probably opens Twitter, if he even has one, is like, man, I never thought – like, if he's a free agent last year, I feel like he's getting like $8-9 million a year. And, like, now he's going to double that. It's just kind of crazy that that it's going down like this. Like, I wish I could make an analogy to it. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a guy who's just in the news as well, Christian Kirk. When he got $21 million per year that one offseason, you're like, really? Christian Kirk, $21 million per year? And I don't know. It just makes me nervous.
The thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christian Kirk, there was the one team, obviously the Jaguars, that paid him that much. there weren't a lot of other teams that were willing to give him that.
It only takes one, though.
It's true.
That almost makes it worse. It's like the Jags paid, I don't know, 130% value for,
No, right, but like with Dalman, at least like you're gonna have we talked about on 4Verts, which by the way, if you haven't subscribed already, go subscribe to 4Verts. I'll put the link in the live chat. We talked about some of the potential destinations for Drew Dalman, whether that's Seattle Seahawks, whether that's New England Patriots, whether that's the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, who names it, right? I mean, or who is it? So there's going to be a lot of people bidding for Drew Dalman's service. The Bears are obviously going to be one of those teams. So at least if you sit there and overpay, as long as you don't overshoot it like the Jaguars did, you can at least be like, all right, well, at least we weren't the only team willing to go this far for Dalman.
Yeah, it's not like you were on an island where
Exactly.
It seemed like the Jags kind of were. It's like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
No, it's valid. And look, I'm not even if they do end up paying huge, like, I think I'd be okay with it in the end because it would tell me that Ben Johnson really wants this guy and thinks he can be the center for this team moving forward. So, it's just, I'm more just like in my head thinking in general, like roster construction, like, do I want to pay a fringe top 10 center like the best center in the league? I mean, that's tough, but this is the price you pay when you haven't been able to get a center, when you haven't been able to draft one, when you haven't been able to, find one on a better deal that becomes your long-term guy. I mean, this is kind of what the Bears get. Like, if they go down this route, it's like, well, that's the price you pay sometimes in free agency when you have a major need and there's not a lot of options. So it'll be interesting, but it's I think we'll hear a lot more over the next 2 or 3 days. Got a couple super chats I want to work in. Appreciate that. We'll get all super chats on screen. Isaiah says, let's go. What's up, Isaiah? Appreciate you tuning in. Emiliano, we can't trade for and pay everyone. Still got to build through the draft for the most part. Pass on Hendrickson. Draft a young edge to pair with Montez. Yeah, I mean, ideally you draft and develop, right? And you could still do that if you trade for Hendrickson. But I hear your point. I don't think the Tooney and Jackson trades prevent you from, like, I don't think those are like, oh, it kills your draft. It's like, okay, 6th round pick. But I think I saw a statistic. The percentage of 6th round picks that become starters are 2%. So, like, that's, I mean, like 50% of 6th round picks don't even make rosters. So that's number one. And then 4th round pick for Tooney next year. Is that stopping you from trading for Trey Hendrickson? Now, maybe I would say the bigger thing that would be stopping you is probably like the contract. Do you want to pay Trey Hendrickson north of $30 million per year on, I don't know, calling a 3-year extension? He turns 31 in December. So is it like 3 for 90, 3 for 96, something like that? So, I don't think it's like a cut and dry for sure. Go get him. But like at the same time, I don't think if you do get him, it just completely eliminates your ability to draft and develop. Obviously, it would call at least 1, if not 2 decent picks, though.
Yeah, he's not getting what Crosby just got yesterday from the Raiders. And look, I mean, Trey Hendrickson, the Bears should 100%, and I think me and Harry were talking about this beforehand, like he will be, in the calls and everything. And look, it's when you have this window with Caleb Williams, whether you want to invest in Drew Dalman, whether you want to invest, in a premier edge rusher like a Trey Hendrickson, or maybe somebody in the free agent market if Khalil Mack were to hit the market. I mean, you're going to have to find your ways to spend and choose wisely. Getting a former All-Pro is a pretty wise way of spending money, in my opinion. Hendrickson, I would be very open to, if I was the Bears, acquiring, trading, and I think one way or another, it's going to add up to about a first-round pick.
He was a first-team All-Pro this year.
Yeah. So I mean,
back-to-back 17.5 sack seasons. Yep. Was with Dennis Allen in New Orleans. Kind of flourished even more in Cincinnati, but I don't know, man. Like, I wish he was 27? Yeah, but you might be able to thread a needle here where, it's not cheap to acquire him in a trade, but you may not have to, like, Micah would cost more because he's 25. Like, you might be able to get Trey Hendrickson for, like, 39 or 41 in another pick. So, and let's just be real. Like, if they trade for Trey Hendrickson, there is a real argument to be made that the 2 best players on your team are guys you just traded for, and Joe Tooney and Trey Hendrickson. Like, Is that a fair argument to make? I mean, I think Jalen Johnson would be in that conversation, especially with Tooney. But, like, I think if Hendrickson is on this team tomorrow, he's the best player on the team. Now, is he the best player for 8 years? Probably not. But, like, for the next couple of years, he probably is. Like, this team lacks blue chippers. I think there's a lot of good players on this team. There's not a lot of guys who are threatening for all pros. And you need 4 to 6 of those to win a Super Bowl. I mean, you just do. So
100%.
if you think Hendrickson's a guy that can help you for the next 3 to 4 years, you have to make a call.
Yeah, I'll make the bold proclamation in 8 years, Trey Hendrickson will not be the best player on a team.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But could he be for 2 or 3? Or at least one of your best players for 2 or 3?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I wouldn't view this as like, oh, he's 30, he's only going to be good for one more year. Well, he's been arguably the best pass rusher in the league at age 29 and age 30.
Yeah.
So, pretty good. Let's see. Tar Hockey. Trey would be great with us on the other side of Sweat, but I'm not giving up a first, maybe a second and a future 4th or 3rd. Yeah, like, the only way I'm giving up 10 is if, like, I'm getting a pick back. And we're going to go through some trade scenarios here, but, you know, if some team out there is offering a 1 and a 2 or a 1 and a 3, like, I'm not, kind of like what I was referring to with the Drew Dalman, like, eventually I'm having a stopping point. Like, if some team offers 2 1s or something for Trey Hendrickson, I'm not getting in that business. But if it's one of your second round picks and a future 3rd or a 4th or something like that, like, I could probably swallow that. Like, I could probably do that if I was the Chicago Bears. So we'll see. Tito, us ready. Cullen, it's going to be a long day, my dude. Let's look this up just while we're on the conversation. Bears free agency live 2024. Let's see how long
while
these
Harry's
streams
looking that up, if you guys are ready for day 1 of free agency, we're going live, what, at 10 a.m., Harry, on Monday?
Yeah, 10
a.m.
Central, unless there's news before that.
If y'all are ready for free agency here on Bears Now, get the Bear Downs down below. I'm going to give some shout-outs while Harry's looking up.
Any guesses, Colin, how long day 1 we were live last year? Throw a number out there for me.
It's at least a full normal working day, I'm willing to bet. At least that. I think it's north of 8 hours.
8 hours and 50 minutes.
Okay.
2023.
Let's go.
Any guesses how long 2023 was?
Shout out to Alan, Ryan, Nick, Ziganji, Harley, Truman, Benjamin. Okay, for day 2, I'm trying to remember if the Bears made any moves day 2. I'm sure they did.
No. Day 1 2 years ago.
Day 1 2 years
Sorry
ago.
if I misspoke.
I may have misheard you. Maybe longer? I'll go 9. How about that?
9.5 hours.
9.5.
Dude, the streams got wild. You guys remember.
Okay.
You guys remembered.
Here's the thing. If I'm not ready for it, I won't show up. And I guarantee you I will be here on Monday. I'm here for it. Let's freaking go.
It's a couple days. I see people in the chat who were with us.
Here we go.
Y'all are some real ones.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get some regulars. Maybe we'll get some people we haven't heard from in a while. Like, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Marty K with the 400. Yeah, Marty K, he's shown up. It's a lot of fun, man.
Shout out to you, Tito.
All right, Tar Hockey again. Yes, get Drew Dalman, solidify the O-line, do something like a 3-year deal, maybe 4-year deal. That's fair. I feel like he'll get 4 because of the amount of competition. I think he'll get a 4-year deal. I think it's going to be 4. I think PFF's projection is probably like the baseline. I think that's probably on the low end. I would guess it's 4 years, 14 per year, somewhere between 14 and 18 is where I think he'd come in. Now, if you got him 4 for 60, 15 a year, 30 guaranteed, something like that, 35, I'd be willing to do that.
That's fair. I mean, he's literally like, in terms of this class, like, I like the kid out of Georgia, Jared Wilson. He's one of my draft crushes. Like, he may be the second best option at center, like pure center, this offseason that's out there. Now, of course, there's some hybrid positions, and I mean, heck, the Bears traded for Jonah Jackson, who did play some center, but in terms of pure centers, I mean, he is the best option by far. So,
yeah. Benjamin Hendrickson for Austin Booker in 72. Yes. Like, I wouldn't even.
I'm
dude,
telling you right now, that's not getting it done.
No.
That's not getting it.
I see some people on Bears Twitter saying swap 10 and 17 for Hendrickson. I don't think that's getting you close.
It would take 10 to 17, and then what else would you have to
You're
throw?
probably giving them one of your twos also, right?
Maybe a 3.
If you're trading 10 and getting a pick back, you're probably getting like, I got a trade idea coming up. I don't think you're getting 17 back. Like, you're telling me Trey Hendrickson is only worth 7 slots in the first round of a draft that's not even considered great in the first round?
Not a chance.
I just don't think that's not going to cut it.
Insane edits. Did Hendrickson request a trade? He has been granted the permission to seek a trade.
Yeah, this year it's mutual. Last year he requested one because contract talks kind of fizzled. This year, the Bengals are basically saying the money he wants we can't pay, so we're going to let him seek a trade, which I do wonder if that hurts his value in terms of trade comp just a little bit.
I know.
Because it's so public now.
And it's true. But in my counter to Harry when we were talking about this is like, well, if you get into a bidding war, then naturally it kind of cancels.
At the end of the day, players of this caliber typically cost a lot. But I'll stand by what I said earlier. I don't think this is the caliber of trade of what a Myles Garrett or a Micah Parsons would look like. He's a year older than Garrett. Garrett's a more well-rounded player. He's a better run stopper. And Micah's 4 years younger. So I think those guys would be two
Jaguars
ones.
continue to clear up cap space. They released Pro Bowl return man Devin Duvernay. Devin Duvernay.
Bears could use a punt returner.
That may be a
Depth
Cullen
receiver.
Crush today. Who knows?
Depth receiver, punt returner. Dennis the Chicago kid, 39 and a future third for Trey, out on Dalman, though. Oh, I'll say this. If you trade for Hendrickson, I don't think you're also getting Dalman. Like, it kind of feels like the Bears have one big money move left, and then you'll see, like, some mid-tier moves. Yeah. Doesn't that seem right?
Yeah, so here's kind of in my mind, if they go the Dalman route, here's how I kind of picture it. They may get kind of a value edge rusher in free agency, whether that's like a Charles Omenihu or whomever. Right?
Yeah, like $10 million a year.
You like somebody cheap. So they sign Dalman. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it's 16, 17 million around that per year. You go out and say you sign a $10 million edge rusher. First round, I mean, if Jeanty falls, dude, I mean, Jeanty might be the pick.
I think in that scenario, first round, I mean, you're still flexible, but like Jeanty, edge rusher, like I think
edge is definitely a target day 2, like 39, and maybe do you double down potentially at 41?
That or go edge and D-tack with those picks.
Well, there's a lot of D-tack.
They need defensive tackles. I mean, their backups are awful. I mean, like, even if you're in the camp of like Dexter and Billings are like good players, and like I think they're solid starters. The depth, Zach Pickens, guys, whiff. Like, I don't think you can bank on him becoming anything. Like, if he becomes an okay backup at this point, that you'll take it because he's been bad. Yeah. He was a healthy scratch last year. Remember late in the year when they were playing meaningless games and he's a healthy scratch? It's like, that's not
never
good. That's not
never.
A year 2, meaningless games. Let's get young players out there. We're going with Byron Cowart. we can't put Zach Pickens in there because he's that bad. So
yeah, and I mean
he's going to be fighting for a roster spot probably.
And just to talk about this draft, like Jamari Caldwell, he's like a nosed defensive tackle from Oregon. I think the earliest he goes is like round 3. I think he's a really good player that could contribute to an NFL roster like week 1. And I mean,
he reminds me of Billings. Just a bowling ball.
And that's the thing. Like in this draft, you can find multiple, defensive tackles similar to Caldwell that can really improve. So I don't know. I feel like that's the route they're going.
If the Bears don't draft at least one defensive tackle in this draft, it's a mistake. Like even if it's just on day 3, like you can find a rotation guy on day 3 in this draft.
You really can. Agreed.
Michael Ortman, trade up and get Carter. Abdul Carter, you trading up to number 1? Because that might be what it takes. Yeah. If the Titans don't trade down, I think they're taking Carter. Carter or Cam Ward. It's one of those two.
Yeah.
I don't think they're taking Travis Hunter 1. They're not taking Shedeur Sanders 1.
Fun fact, as of like 30 minutes before we went live, do you know who the odds-on favorite was to sign Justin Fields was?
30 minutes ago?
Yeah, like as of 30 minutes ago. You just mentioned
Evan Ingram just got released.
Ooh, Ingram. Ooh, wow. So they are just clearing house in Jacksonville. Interesting.
My brain is
you do what you
swirling.
Need to do. You do what you need to do.
Y for yes and for no. How do we feel about Evan Ingram, chat?
He is older.
Is he even 30 yet?
I think so.
He's 30?
He's 30. That's what I'm saying. He's older.
But what if he's 1 year and $7 million?
No, I'm not saying you don't sign him. I'm just saying out of all the potential options, he is on the
He only
other
played
side.
9 games last year. 365 and a touchdown. 2 years before that in Jacksonville. 73 grabs, 766, 4 touchdowns. 114 grabs, 963 and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. To me, with the signing of Durham Smythe, this really opens up what you can do at your eventual tight end too, because we all agree I think Durham Smythe will eventually be tight end 3.
In all seriousness, I'd rather just draft one.
Exactly.
But
Mason Taylor.
This is what my brain does. Guys free up, and I'm like,
Literally, that's funny. Our boss.
The problem with Ingram is he doesn't block at all.
No.
I think Cullen and I block more than Evan Ingram.
I'll get down. I'll put my hand in the dirt. I'll tell you that much for free.
Yeah. All right. The Notcast would rather take Jeanty at 10, trade back into the first round, have Caleb Garreau with the young center, Zabel. The Notcast, did you hack our live show script? Because you might be onto something there. I like that idea. Mark Ledger, can we trade first rounders and give them a third for trade? So swap first, I think is what you're saying. So 72 and 10 to the Bengals for 17. I would do that. Would the Bengals?
I don't know if the Bengals would.
If you're dropping from 10 to 17, that's probably worth a second round pick.
Yeah.
So to me, is just a second round pick, then you add a third? That's actually,
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah,
I'd probably do that.
The more I think about that.
I think you're cooking, Mark. You might be cooking.
That actually is not a bad idea. I don't hate that. I do not hate that.
Could be onto something, Mark. Could be onto something. All right, Joey. Any interest in Bosa, and what do you think he gets? If the price is right, I'd take a flyer. He's had a lot of injuries. The play has declined. I think if you pick him up, you got to have a third edge you feel good about. I think if you sign Bosa, Colin, that's a textbook drafted edge on day 2 that can play. Because, Bosa, he's just not a 3-down guy anymore. He's going to miss time.
Yep.
But as a rotation pass rusher, can he still help a team? I think he can. What do you think he is? 1 year, $10 million? I think you're going to see a lot of these 1 year, $10 million type of contracts.
Maybe with incentives, he gets up to 12.
Yeah, if he hits 6 sacks, he could get an extra $1 million or something.
Yeah, I really do think he's a Niner though. I think he's.
If unless there's a team that's willing to overpay, why wouldn't he just go to San Francisco? He might even go there for cheap just for 1 year, just to play with Nick, and then sign elsewhere next year.
Agreed. We got Dennis, the Chicago kid. Chat, would you rather have Trey and Zabel or Dalman and JPJ?
Joey Porter Jr., Jackson Powers Johnson.
I think, is it James Pierce Jr.? Is that?
That's probably what he means, yeah. I'd go Hendrickson and Zabel, probably pretty easily too, because Hendrickson, I know for at least 2 more years I'm getting high level play. I feel confident in that. Zabel, I just there's too much unknown with James Pierce. I don't know what's going on there. Now, I would draft him later in the first round, just in a vacuum. But if you're telling me out of these combinations, who would I rather have? I think Hendrickson and Zabel's a pretty easy pull here.
You're pretty high on Zabel, and I like him too.
He dominated the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
All the chatter from the combine is he's one of the high character guys.
Yeah.
The only thing that makes me nervous is the competition.
Exactly.
But I think he helped check that box at the Senior Bowl.
Dennis also says JPJ was an example. You can throw Mike Green in there.
If they drafted Zabel, I would hope they have a stopgap center.
Like a
Coleman Shelton.
Ryan Kelly.
Josh Myers.
Yeah.
If Zabel beats him out, awesome. If not, then, he could just be your top interior backup this year, and someone's going to get hurt at some point, and he'll get to play a lot. So
one of the reasons that I'm so for signing Drew Dalman, and I'll just make this point here. Imagine telling your rookie quarterback, hey, you're going to have potentially three different centers throughout your first 3 years in the league.
And that's a good argument. Like, hey, we're going to get this guy. He'll be here at least 3 years. You guys will get very comfortable with each other. I get it. I get it.
It's just the continuity thing. Like, if I'm, again, I value the center position. I think it's one of the more, obviously, important positions on the offensive line. And, if you're able to get that guy, and again, if they don't feel Dalman's a fit, so be it. Or they don't want to pay the price, so be it. But I think there's just real value in adding a guy like Dalman's caliber, like you said, with the continuity aspect.
Yeah. Totally valid argument. No pushback here. Milton Williams, I don't know if he's a great fit in a 4-3. I think he's like a 3-4 defensive end. He's like 270. He's like 280. Like, where do you play him in a 4-3? Is he big enough to be a 3-tech? He'd probably play some edge, some 3-tech. I also think he's going to get stupid money. Like, I think the Patriots are going to give him $20 million a year. I like Milton Williams, but how much does he benefit too playing next to Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat, Jordan Davis, who just eats up blocks? I think he's a good player, but him and Sweat make me nervous because they play next to such good players. Josh Sweat, I mean.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm out on all Philadelphia Eagle free agents. I'm out on Milton Williams, I'm out on Sweat, and Becton.
Like,
I'm out on all
what are the chances they play better elsewhere than they did there? Very low, I would say. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not.
Excuse me.
I'm not that I'm cool letting Milton Williams go elsewhere. Dylan V, how much is Poles scouting and drafting to blame for lack of blue chip players? Well, his first year he didn't have a first round pick. So in a draft where you don't have a first round pick, like, I don't think it's a fair expectation to think you're going to get a blue chip player at a draft where you're not picking the first round. And in that first draft, his first two picks have been good starters, Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. It's not Poles' fault that Brisker has developed this major concussion problem. That's unfortunate. Now, he whiffed on Velus Jones in the third, but his first two picks have been good. Gordon's, I would expect, is going to get extended. Good player. He also found Braxton Jones in the fifth of that draft. Whatever you think, if you're on the high end of what Braxton Jones is, low end, at worst, he's a serviceable left tackle. So, like, that first draft, he found three or four pretty solid players. Second draft, he got Darnell Wright in the first round. Now, I know everybody says, well, he traded down, could have had Jalen Carter. I think Darnell Wright is a really good right tackle, and I think Joe Thuney coming in is going to help elevate him in year 3 even more. Now, if you want to make the argument Jalen Carter is a future Hall of Fame, all this stuff, like, hey, I'm not pushing back on it. But I also think the thinking at the time, like, are the Bears, do they have veterans that can, like help handle Jalen Carter? Like, Philadelphia for Carter, again, you go back to the Eagles. Like, is Jalen Carter as good anywhere else as he is in Philadelphia? I don't know. I mean, maybe he is, but I like Darnell Wright. But it's fair. Like, Darnell Wright's not a blue chipper. Last year in the first round, Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze. 1 year in, jury's obviously still out. So I think we have to give it time on those two and Wright still. I think Wright is trending. Like, I would put Wright in a red chip category. So, like, blue chip is like the no-doubters, guys who could be all pros. Red chip is like Pro Bowl guys you give second contracts to, and then so on and so forth. Like, Wright, I think for sure is on a second contract trajectory. I think blue chip is still possible right now. I'd put him in red. Caleb and Rome, I think it's too early. I think they have at least red chip upside, if not blue, but we'll have to see how it plays out. I think Kyler's a red chip player. I think there's a lot of reds on this team. I don't think there's enough blues. Jalen Johnson's like a friend. Like, I think he's like a low-end blue. Montez is like a high-end red. Like, really good player, probably never an All-Pro, though. Jalen Johnson was second-team All-Pro 2 years ago. Pro Bowl caliber season last year. Low blue, high red. Like, Joe Thuney now, he's probably low blue because he's 32. Like, can you find some more blues? You need blues. Blues, baby. Blues Clues. We need more of them. Need blue chips, baby.
Shout out to PJ if he's watching.
He's never watched Blue's Clues. He's Bluey, though.
Ah, there you go.
The new Blue. New Blues.
There we go.
All right, Dustin.
Trade 10 and FP for 17 and Hendrickson. Draft Zabel or Nolan, running back and safety at 39 and 41.
I think he means flip. 10 and flip for 17.
Yeah.
I just don't think just that's enough. I think the idea earlier, flip 10 and 17 plus send 72, I think that's probably more like what you're looking at, if I had to guess. Mo Man, why not Green at 10? Hampton or Johnson in the second? Green. Oh, Mike Green. I think it's a tick early for him. I also don't know if he's a scheme fit.
Yeah.
Now, I think that gets overblown as an outsider. Like, I'll never forget the Cowboys taking Taco Charlton over TJ Watt because he was a better scheme fit. Like, if you feel strongly about a prospect, just take him. But that would go against what Dennis Allen edge rushers have looked like historically.
Yep.
Short arms, not as long, not as tall. I think he's a damn good passer. I said it the other day. I think after Abdul Carter, he's the second best pass rushing edge in the draft. But they might view Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart as guys who can excel more in this scheme, given their length and athletic profile.
Don't sleep on Donovan Ezeraku.
He's rising.
Yeah.
I think he's also kind of in that 3-4 realm, though. I think he's 6'2".
Yeah, he's a shorter edge. A lot of production, had the second most sacks.
16 and a half sacks at Boston College last year.
Actually, ironically, second to Mike Green. He's a
I think
hell of a player, man.
17 and a half, something like that?
Harry just, whenever you get some free time, he had like an interview where he talked about like how he sets up pass rush moves and like the thought process behind it. He's not just, obviously he plays with a high motor, but he has like a really like interesting like, way he goes about it. I think he's going to be a really successful player in this league.
I love the idea, if you don't pick at 10 and you want a pass rusher, trading down between like 4 and 8 spots and taking a pass rusher, whether it's Michael Williams, whether it's Shamar Stewart, whether it's Mike Green, whether it's Ezeraku. Like, I think the teens and early 20s is the value of the first-round edges after Abdul Carter in this draft. That's just my take on it. I think, like, you see mocks with, like, the Jets and Panthers maybe taking an edge at 7 and 8, and I'm just like, that feels a little rich. Like, I think, like, the middle of the first round is where the value is. So, like, if they wanted to trade back to, like, 15, 16, take an edge there, I think get an extra second, third-round pick in the process, like, I'd be all for that. All right, Dustin, how many more supers do we have, Colin?
After this one, we've got 3 more.
Okay,
actually, 3 more.
Let's do this one, and then let's get into our segments, and then we'll save those for our mailbags. We have 4 segments today, and a lot to get to here. So we will get to all the super chats, I promise. Dustin says Trevor Sycamore likes Will Campbell as center on the Bears O-line. Thoughts? A lot of people do. It's just, are you maximizing a player of his caliber by putting him at center? Now, you could argue the Bears, at least for this year, that would be maximizing this O-line because you have Tooney and Jonah Jackson. They're your guards. Will Campbell is your center. And then you've got your tackles. Maybe you draft competition for Braxton Jones or sign a veteran free agent. Look, I'm not against it. I don't know if I'd want him to necessarily be center long-term because, again, I don't know if you're maximizing. But if he's your center for 2 years and then you want to kick him out to guard or tackle, you could do that. Or, look, if he's an all-pro at center, keep him at center, obviously. But I just think he's so talented. Like, to me, would you rather have the 15th best center or the 15th best guard? I'd rather have a mid-tier center than a mid-tier guard, even though center has been so bad for the Bears. So like I do have pause saying that, but we'll see. I don't hate the idea.
Yeah. I'm just going to put this super chat on screen because it's really not a question, but shout out
Pickles.
to Jason the pharmacist.
You like pickles? All right, man.
Hey, listen. Nope.
No shame on pickles, man.
No shame.
No
shame whatsoever.
All right, hit that like button because here's what we got coming up on Chicago Bears Now Live. Appreciate it. We got almost 1,300 people watching. Subscribe if you haven't liked the video as well. We would greatly appreciate it. All super chats will get answered. Also, fire in those hashtag Bears. We'll get to some of those questions as well, hopefully. latest news and rumors, really just a Trey Hendrickson segment coming up off the top. I've got my latest mock draft, plus take a look at some Bears free agent targets as well, with free agency looming on Monday. Busy show ahead. Chicago Bears now. Let's get it here on a Thursday afternoon. Trey Hendrickson has requested a trade from the Cincinnati Bengals, and we're going to talk about it here on Chicago Bears Now. As one big difference between this offseason and last, because if you remember last year, he requested a trade as well amidst contract disputes. This year, the Bengals are essentially granting it. They are going to let him seek out a trade partner and ship him out because they can't pay Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson, or they're choosing not to pay all three. So Hendrickson appears to be the odd man out, and could the Bears be interested? Could Ryan Poles make another trade before or early on in free agency? I'll just ask you guys off the rip. Excuse me. Do you want the Bears to trade for Trey Hendrickson? Type T for trade, type P for pass. Just in a vacuum, not necessarily trade compensation. Just do you want him or not? T for trade, P for pass. Let me know what you guys think. Here was Hendrickson's statement via Adam Schefter on Twitter saying, quote, "It's been an honor and a privilege to represent Cincinnati over the last 4 years. I love the city and organization. I appreciate the privilege of now being allowed to explore my options." So they're respecting his wishes as he's got 1 year left on his contract. And I think one thing that the average NFL fan probably doesn't realize is, to me, this guy's a top 5 pass rusher in the league. Edge, defensive tackle, whatever position, he's one of the 5 best on the planet. And you could argue over the last 2 years, he's been the best. I mean, he's 35 sacks the last 2 years, led the NFL in sacks last year, led the NFL in pressures. He is a tremendous pass rusher. He's not the best run defender. I'd say he's average, but he is an unbelievable pass rusher. Now, Jordan Schultz has already mentioned a couple of teams. The Falcons, who have not had a good edge rusher in, 15 years. I mean, it's a joke. Commanders as well, monitoring the situation. Obviously, Washington has a lot of cap space and a young quarterback similar to the Bears. This is the time you try to get elite players. With this trade request now official, more teams are getting involved for the Bengals all-pro pass rusher, defensive end, whatever you want to call it. Okay, I think 8 teams stand out to me. Washington and Atlanta, Schultz already mentions, though, they both need pass rushers. Atlanta's trickier because their cap situation's not great. Chicago, I'll throw them in there. Cap space, needed a pass rusher, somewhat opposite of Montez Sweat. You know the Eagles always sniff around on these things. Packers, they could use a pass rusher. Lucas Van Ness hasn't really worked out. Detroit, they were linked to edge rushers at the deadline last year, got Zadarius Smith. You pair him with Aiden Hutchinson, that's pretty interesting. Excuse me, let me get some water here. Okay. Buffalo, the only pushback on that one is Cincinnati going to trade him to Buffalo, a team they're directly competing with? I don't know about that. And then the 49ers, they always seem to be aggressive with these type of moves as well. At minimum, the Bears need to make a call here. Ryan Poles needs to get on the phone, make a call, see what the early asking point is. You guys want 2 firsts? Is it 1 first? Is it a day 2 pick? Is it a day 2 pick plus a day 3 pick? Is it 2 day 2 picks? Gauge the market. See where it sits right now. Because I don't think you're looking at a Myles Garrett or a Micah Parsons situation where if those 2 guys truly hit the market, they're getting at least 2 1s. Garrett's better all around. He's 1 year younger, defends the run better, all that stuff. And Micah is 25-26. Hendrickson's 30. Doesn't turn 31 until December. So, and he doesn't play the run as well as Micah, or as well as Myles. Probably similar to Parsons, kind of average as a run defender. But I just can't outline enough how tremendous this guy is as a pass rusher. Led the NFL in sacks this year. Led the NFL in pressures with, I think it was like 83 or something like that. 35 sacks the past 2 years. 3 14-plus sacks in the past 4 seasons. I mean, this is one of the best on the planet at what he does, and the Bears don't have enough of that. And I'm not just talking about elite pass rushers. They clearly do not have enough of that. It's been an issue since they traded Khalil Mack. Montez Sweat, he is not a number 1 pass rusher on a good defensive line. In a perfect world, He's an elite runs edge setter and a good pass rusher. But since they've traded for him, they've asked him to be their best pass rusher, and that's never who he was in Washington. He was a dominant run stopper and edge setter and a good pass rusher. You get a guy like Trey Hendrickson, Montez Sweat slides back into a role that's ideal, where he's a dominant edge setter against the run, and he could be a secondary pass rusher and get more one-on-one looks. Whereas right now he's drawing a lot of double teams because you don't have to double team anyone else on this defensive line. I think Trey Hendrickson opposite of Montez Sweat is a really good fit. Trey, go get the quarterback. Sweat, be that run stopper and secondary pass rusher. I think that's ideal. I think it'd free up Dexter in the middle even more as well. I think it would be really fun to see what that looked like. Now, coming up, we're going to take a look. What's a trade going to cost in terms of draft pick compensation, et cetera, and some trade ideas as well. Cooked up 3 of them, so we'll dive into that. But first, I do want to give a shout-out to our sponsor. That, of course, is Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. I can see all of my subscriptions in one place with Rocket Money, and if I see something I don't want, Rocket Money can help me cancel it with just a few taps. Most Americans think they're spending $62 per month on subscriptions. That number is closer to $300. Don't believe me? Sign up with Rocket Money, sync up your account. You'll see them all right there. You're like, oh my God, $20 on this, $18 on this, $7.99, yada, yada, yada. Oh, that's $240, not $75. Need to scale back. You might find that you're getting double charged because you have 2 separate accounts for streaming services you didn't even realize. You may have signed up for a free trial years ago, and you've been getting charged ever since. Rocket Money is going to help you solve all of those problems. Stay on top of your finances. You can set budgets. They'll send you alerts. It's awesome. I use it on a weekly and sometimes daily basis. It has over 5 million users, Rocket Money does, and they have saved customers $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Members can save up to $740 per year if you use the app's full features. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions today by going to rocketmoney.com/bears now. One more time, rocketmoney.com/bears now. That link is in the comments and in the description. Get started with Rocket Money today. Okay, at 30 years old, what is a trade going to cost? Because, a lot of these GMs and execs, when they see that number 3 with a player's age, especially a trenches player, in their eyes, value goes down. Historically, that's true for a lot of players. Now, Trey Hendrickson doesn't turn 31 until December, so this upcoming season is really his age 30 season. So, it's not like he's going to be 32 in the second year you have him. He has 1 year, $18.7 million left on his deal, and you're going to have to extend him. I think any team that trades for him is going to have an extension in place. We just saw Max Crosby get $35 per year. I think it's a little tough sell to think Hendrickson's topping that. He is a couple years older. He doesn't play the run as well as Max. But I do think it's going to be 30-plus. I think 2 years, 32 per year, 3 years, 30-plus per year. It's going to cost a lot. But with 1 year left at less than 20, you could kind of morph that into a new 3 or 4 year deal where the cap hits can be in the 20s, especially if you gave him a big signing bonus. So I think it could be a manageable contract if you do it properly, which that's one thing Ryan Poles has done pretty well, is keep those cap hits reasonable throughout the course of the contract. And I just wonder, does 1 first-round pick or something that adds up to that, does that get it done? Because Micah and Garrett, they're getting 2 1s, plus more probably. Hendrickson, maybe it is like a first-rounder or slightly more, maybe even slightly less. Timing is everything. So I think if the Bengals traded him last offseason, they would have gotten more. But now that he is 30, it might end up being a little less. If the Bears make a big-time trade, we're going to be going live. So subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, because if Trey Hendrickson gets traded to Chicago, unless it's on Saturday, it'd be tough for me to go live Saturday. I got a lot of family stuff going on. We'd get a video out. Don't know if we'd be live, but pretty much any other time, we'd be going live here on the channel. So hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications. That way you know exactly when we go live. Okay. God, I've had a tickle in my throat here. 3 trades. Number 1, Bears get Hendrickson. Bengals get 39, third next year. Is that enough? 39's close to a first-round pick. I wouldn't want to do 39 and your third this year if you could avoid it. Would I be willing to? Probably, but I would offer something like this first and see if the Bengals bid at that. See if they'd be willing to do that. Number 2, Trey Hendrickson for your first next year. I don't want to give up a first, but if it's a future first, especially if you're thinking you're going to be a much better team next year, and I think the way the Bears are operating, that's their goal. They want to be a playoff team. Okay, if it ends up being the 24th pick next year, I can probably live with that. Trade number 3. Trey Hendrickson to the Bears, the Bengals' third-round pick, 81, for number 10 overall this year. I really do not want to give up that pick, but if I get a day 2 pick back, I'd probably ask for their second-round pick back. I'm seeing ideas, just swap 10 and 17. I don't think that's enough. Now, maybe you could swap 10 and 17, give Cincinnati a third. I saw someone in the comments mention that. That could work out, or something like this could work out as well. If I'm giving up 10, I got to get a pick back because not all first-round picks are equal. Like if Washington offers them a first, they've been linked to him already, that's 29. Like if I'm the Bengals, I want that pick straight up and maybe even like a day 3 pick on top of it. But the 10th pick, even in this draft, like that's a very valuable pick. So I got to get something back in addition to Hendrickson, I think, if I'm making that move. Okay, name your price. How much would you trade for Trey Hendrickson? Feel free to throw trade ideas in the comment section below. You can tweet them at me as well, at HGramNFL. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel because, again, if a big-time move goes down, we're going to have it covered here on Chicago Bears Now. So subscribe to the channel, turn on the noties, and bear down. Man.
You just drink water. I got this super chat, my guy. With Sanborn gone, what linebackers would you draft to fill the position? I like Danny Stutzman, had a high RAS score.
RAS season, baby.
Yeah, check my RAS.
Who's back of the week?
Here's the thing. Stutzman, I really liked as like a Mike linebacker option. He's not the greatest cover guy. When he's been a 3-year starter at Oklahoma, really it was his 2022 season where he only had like decent coverage grades. The last 2 years, he really hasn't made the same plays with the ball. It hasn't had as many interceptions, as many pass deflections. But athletically, like you mentioned, he tested really well at the combine. Could he maybe be an option, day 3 if he slips that far? Which, to be honest, like given his coverage kind of stats, I think it is very possible. Maybe. I think there's a lot to like with Stutzman as a prospect, but he's far from a perfect guy. But yeah. David, I don't hate this one at all for the Bears.
By the way, NFL notifications, which that account is brutal. But just for fun conversation, they're buying into Bears Twitter. Breaking rumor, which that is art, by the way. Breaking rumor. Watch for a potential trade back scenario between the Bears and Bengals for Trey Hendrickson. So essentially the 10 for 17 swap. If that is on the table, that trade should have been completed the second after he requested.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, if you did that, you could still trade up and get Jeanty if you really wanted him.
Yeah.
Like, you'd still have the ammo to do that.
Yeah, I just
can't imagine that's the case.
I mean, if
a 10 and 7 for 17 swap for Hendrickson's available, that's a no-brainer. I get you still have to pay him, but, that is a no-brainer.
I mean, just put it this way. If you see something breaking rumor followed by anything else, I mean,
there's rumors and there's breaking news. Breaking rumors kind of an art.
It really is. I mean, Stephen King, name your writer. I mean, I would be proud of that one.
That's good stuff.
Honestly, or not honestly, 2 other Jaguars got released while we were in that segment, Harry. Ronald Darby and Josh Reynolds also got released. So, just some news there.
Oh, I tweeted out, Josh Reynolds was with Detroit with Ben Johnson. Remember he had those bad drops in that playoff game? He had a pretty good year, though. It was kind of a sour ending, and they let him walk, but I wonder if he's like a cheap wide receiver 3 option. He's a pretty good blocker, would know the offense, so that's an interesting name to monitor.
Yeah.
Okay, Cornelius, ESPN 1000, Chicago guys are a hard no on Ashton Jeanty no matter what the Bears do in free agency. I don't understand their logic. I mean, I can't speak what they said, but to me, you have to be open-minded to it. Like, you've seen the value of what a dominant running game can do. If you think Jeanty behind this O-line can give you something close to that, Caleb Williams is still a relative unknown. He's a second-year player. You got to take some pressure off him. He was 7th in the NFL in pass attempts last year. That should have never happened as a rookie. It's just unacceptable. So, look, I get the whole positional value, but I don't know. Like, the NFL is kind of things shift quickly, man. Yep. Like, we just saw a team sign the best free agent available and dominate a Super Bowl. Like, I don't know, man. Like, if you think Jeanty is special and you feel at least pretty good about the O-line, I think he has to be under consideration at this point.
I mean, you think about all the teams. Obviously, Saquon's the big one. Derrick Henry, right? The Ravens invested in on running back. It elevated their offense to a level, even though they got knocked out by the Bills. If you look at Josh Jacobs, FGB, but the Packers invested in a running back, and clearly they centered their offense around him.
I don't know if they're a playoff team without him last year.
I mean, honestly, given Jordan Love's play, I mean, it was looking rough at times. And then even at a lower level, like Joe Mixon, he was traded to Houston, wasn't a signing, but they invested in the running back position, and he really kind of gave their offense another level despite their offensive line play not being great. So if you think Ashton Jeanty, like me and Harry do, as a top 5 player, you invested if he falls to a 10.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love this draft at running back. I do think there's a gap between Jeanty and everyone else. Like, if I thought Hampton was 93% of Jeanty, I'd be like, probably don't do it. I think it's like he's 80% of Jeanty, 85. Now, we have to see it all play out, obviously, but Jeanty has some of the best contact balance I've ever seen. Like, I think he's a guy you can lean on in the NFL.
I mean,
and I love the pairing with Swift.
Yeah.
There were times there was about a 6-week stretch last year where Swift was the best offensive player on this team. Is he a flawed back? No question. There's a reason we've talked a lot about running back. I don't think he's a guy you want to be given 20-plus carries to, but I think he's a guy you can give 10 to 12 to, throw the ball to him 4 to 6 times a game, have another back you lean on. Like, I think a Jeanty-Swift pairing, especially next year, could be a lot of fun. And then Jeanty's role even expands in year 2. But yeah, I would push back on the ESPN 1000 guys with that take. Like, if you don't want them, that's fine. But to say there's no scenario where you would consider it, I disagree. Agreed. Jess, Bluey is goated. It is. Little fella loves it too. Great show, man. I enjoy it. I enjoy watching it. If Will Campbell or Armand Mimbo aren't there at 10, trade down or take best D-line. Too many good running backs. No Jeanty. Yeah, I mean, kind of what I was just saying. I think there's a gap. I hear you. It's a great draft, and if they took one on day 2, I'd be cool with it. But, yeah, we'll see. This is one of those years I'd love to know what their big board is. And I don't think there will be a single 2 teams in the league, Colin, that has even like the exact same top 6. I think it is going to be all over the map. Teams' big boards this year. And that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. Like, if I could be a fly during an NFL draft in a GM room, just a war room, that would be just so cool. And especially awesome. This year too. Like, when it's not a given who's even going number 1 overall, and I think it'd be really cool, man. I really do.
Be fun. By the way, just quick note on Josh Reynolds. His last 2 years in Detroit, 22 and 23, so the first 2 years of Johnson calling plays here. In 22, 38 grabs. This is in 14 games, 479 yards, 3 touchdowns. In 23, 40 grabs, 608, and 5 touchdowns. So last year between Denver and Jacksonville, only played in 9 games, 13 catches, $194 and a touchdown. So I think this would be kind of like a buy while the stock is down. He's 30, would know the system, had his best years, some of his best years with Johnson. Be interesting. If you can get him for 1 year and $3-4 million, compete to be that third guy, wouldn't hate it.
Wouldn't hate it.
Is this the Devin Hester? Appreciate the 10. Blue chip only at 10. If none are there, trade back. If Campbell and Jeanty aren't there at 10 and the Bears don't trade back, yikes. Well, it does take 2 to tango. If you can't find a trade, you can't find a trade. But I hear you. Trade back, get Hampton or an offensive tackle, and pick up more draft capital. Yeah, like I've kind of thrown it out there. If the quartet of Campbell, Jeanty, Mimbo, and who's the other one? Mason Graham. I'd be shocked if he got there, but if he was, you take him. If those 4 guys are all back, I think I'm trading back. If they're off the board at 10, I think I'm trading back. So I'll throw a wild card in there though, and I will do this on a mock draft at some point. Tyler Warren at 10. I will do that at some point.
I don't hate it.
It's not in my mock today, but I will do it at some point. Okay, Marcus. How many more do we have in the queue right now? Because we could just use some of these in the mailbag.
After this,
as well.
only 2 more.
Okay, let's do this one, then we'll start the mailbag. We can hit the 2 first, and then just go to whatever.
Okay.
So hashtag Bears Super Chat. We'll get to him in a mailbag. Marcus says, with the Durham Smythe edition, do you think we add another tight end, either draft or Ingram? I'd be curious to see what Ingram's price is. He doesn't block, so I don't know how Ben Johnson would view him. I do think drafting a tight end is very possible, if not likely. Even if it's on day 3, it's a good tight end draft. So I can find guys, even in the 5th round, that can help you. So, all right, we got a mailbag coming up. Fire away. Hashtag Bears or Super Chat to get your questions answered. And we'll keep it rolling here on Bears Now Live. From Willie Pete, trade back to 17, get Trey Hendrickson from Cincinnati, draft a Marion Hampton. Yeah, this has been a popular one, swapping 10 and 17. I don't think that's enough. I think you'd have to add another pick in there, maybe a third. But in principle, I get it. Hampton at 17, it's probably on the high end, but I think you're at least entering the window where I'd be okay with it. Yeah, I mean, look, if a 10 for 17 swap for Hendrickson's on the table, I would do that immediately. I'd be shocked if it is, but I would do that immediately. Atomic Bear, should the Bears invest heavily in Drew Dalman or a pass rusher? I think if I had to pick the two, depending on who the pass rusher is, I would pick pass rusher. But it depends who we're talking about specifically. It's a tough call. You need a center, certainly. You'd have to feel good about some stopgap options or a rookie. But I think I would lean pass rusher because that's a big need too. That's probably where I would lean. What say you? Bigger need, C for center, P for pass rusher. I'm going to go pass rusher because I think the Bears, especially with the Tooney addition, you at least feel good about the guys playing around the center. So I would go pass rusher, but center is obviously still a need. I'm not dismissing it whatsoever. Dennis, don't think Zabel gets past Seattle. Agree, Cullen. Producer Cullen, do you want to chime in over there? Do you think Seattle would take him at 18?
I think he's an option, yeah. Seattle's looking to improve the interior of the offensive line. Obviously, Zabel had a really great Senior Bowl. He's regarded as a high-character guy, as you mentioned. And, yeah, I definitely think he's an option for Seattle.
Would you take him or Tyler Booker?
I would actually lean I'd lean Zabel out of those two, but I think maybe Donovan Jackson potentially that high. I mean, I'd think about it.
You could go that high.
I'd think about it, but yeah, I'd lean Zabel over Booker.
Okay. All right, next up here is Muhammad. If you look at post-Super Bowl winners as far as 2010, not many can say they got there because of running back. Barkley elevated the Eagles, yes, but let's not act like that team wasn't stacked. Running back should be last on our team's needs. Yeah, the team was stacked, but like when you think about the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles, what is the first thing that comes to mind? The first thing that comes to my mind is just over the course of the season, Saquon breaking long runs and breaking games open. Like, I don't remember a lot of A.J. Brown downfield catches. I know they happened, but like, I think when Eagles fans look back at this team 20 years from now, Saquon's going to be the guy they remember. Now, obviously, they're loaded. O-line is stacked. Defense is loaded. Jalen Hurts is a good player. They got good players all over the place. I get that, but I also think you got to factor in where the Bears are right now. They have a second-year quarterback. Like, do you want to put everything on Caleb's plate right now? Like, I want to I want to have a team that can run the football too. And by the way, Ben Johnson's teams in Detroit, they were very balanced. They ran the ball a lot with Gibbs, with Montgomery. I'll never forget week 1 last year when they go into overtime against the Rams. They just pounded Montgomery. Just handoff, handoff, handoff. They wore him down. And obviously the O-line plays a role, but a running back who can take a lot of carries like that can do that as well. So I'm not saying it has to be the top need, but I would like to get a guy who can run the football, especially between the tackles, and be a guy you can ride, especially in high-leverage situations. Subscribe to the channel. We will continue to bring you coverage this offseason every single day. News, rumors, free agency, draft. We got you guys covered. We're closing in on 118,000 subs. Would love to get there before free agency opens. Let's make it happen. Okay, Devo Miller, if you have an opportunity to move into the top 3 and draft Abdul Carter, would you consider it? What would a deal look like to get that done? Carter and Sweat would be nasty. Top 3, I think, is too early. Like, it's going to cost you 10 and your 1 next year at least, I think. Now, if there's a scenario where he gets to like 5 or 6, does that at least is that on my radar? Like if he gets past New England at 4, am I like, would I consider it? Like would I trade 10 and 39 or 41 plus like a day 3 pick to move up to 5 and take Carter? I'd think about it, but I think top 3 is just too far to go. I'm not going that route. Alex Amerling, 10 in our 3rd for Trey and 17. I'd do that. I would trade 10 and 72 for 17 and Trey Hendrickson. I would pull the trigger on that for sure. Get yourself an FGB t-shirt right here at chatsports.com/FGB. Link is in the comments and in the description. If you hate the Packers as much as I do, get yourself an FGB tee right now. DT, get Trey and draft your line on both sides. Fill in with actual quality vets on vet minimum deals. Quality vets on vet minimum deals. Kind of hard to find. We need to develop these young players. Bears have been bad at development. You know who a quality vet on a vet minimum deal is? That's like a Mercedes Lewis. Doesn't mean they don't have value, but even aging vets, like Calais Campbell last year, he is very old. I think he got like $5 or $6 million. Like you don't get guys for $1 million that can really play. It just doesn't happen. Like Zach Bond for $3 million last year is an all-time outlier. It just is. So it's just tough to identify guys who are just completely lost their value, and you think you bringing them in, they're going to be really good players. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but that's easier said than done. Edward, draft Jeanty, trade Swift for a 3rd. You're not getting a 3rd for Swift, maybe a 5th. And get Scatteraboo, that's a 1-2 punch. Yeah, I mean, it'd be fun, but Swift is a day 3 value pick with his contract. And if you're only getting a 5th, I'd rather just keep him. I think he can help you this year. So, will the Bears make the playoffs this year? Y for yes, in for no. Like what they've done so far. If Caleb takes a step, I think it's possible. I think the division's wide open. Okay, Winnie the Pooh Hole. What a name. As Bears fans, we should expect the worst, hope for the best. Love your content. Rely on you guys for all my news. What dat beard smell like? Let's see. Just, beard. Maybe a little bread Zeppelin, which is what we had for lunch. When it's thicker, that's when it starts smelling like what you ate for lunch. But it's not quite there yet. Todd, do you expect the Bears to make more cuts or restructure contracts to free up more cap this year? Certainly possible. We did a video on that. They could restructure a Montez Sweat, a Jalen Johnson, a DJ Moore. There are contracts they could restructure. Poles has typically gone against that to stay flexible in future years. But I think if you restructured one of those, you're still pretty flexible in the future. It basically means when you restructure a big contract like that, it kind of pushes it back 1 year of when you're able to get out of that deal. So, hypothetical, if a guy's cap hit is $20 million and next year it's a You can cut a guy with only $6 million dead cap penalty. Well, if you restructure this year, the dead cap is pretty much what it was the year you restructured, if not a little more. So it just kind of pushes that back. So you don't want to overdo that, but if there's a player you identified like, hey, there's no doubt in our mind he will be here the next year, then I'm more comfortable going that route. And I think there's a few players on this team that would fit the bill for. DC Viper, I'm probably in the minority, but I would probably rather trade down if Campbell is gone before 10. I would love to add more draft picks since we still have more holes to fill. Yeah, I don't think you're in a huge minority. I'd be cool trading down from 10, even if Jeanty's on the board. Be very tempted, but if you found a good trade, if some team at 16 or 17, moved up and gave you a second and a day 3 pick to do it, that's pretty tempting too. So I think the way the Bears have operated so far and hopefully continue to in free agency is keep your flexibility going into the draft. Don't pigeonhole yourself into doing one thing. I think that's how you always want to be going into a draft. So you can either go BPA, be willing to trade around. That's always an ideal scenario. Appreciate all the questions. A lot of good ones here on today's show. If we didn't get them answered, we can answer them on social at HGramNFL on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm going to work really hard to catch up on my IG DMs this weekend before free agency because I know there's a bunch I got to get to. So fire away over there, and we will get you back. Devin Hester, have you looked into Jonah Monheim out of Tennessee? Played guard, Caleb's Heisman year, played center the past 2 years. Would be a great guy. Yeah, he's played all over the place. I think in one of my earlier mock drafts I took him. He is strictly center guard in the NFL. Day 3 guy, not great measurables, not a great athlete, but 5th, 6th round, I think that's perfect for him. He could be a backup center interior guy.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I think, listen, if you want to take him on day 3, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't think he's, going to really change life for you. But, in terms
I like
of
his versatility.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, if you want to add him as a depth piece.
Linemen on day 3, if they're versatile, I think there's value because guys always go down. So, sometimes you have to dip into your 7th, 8th offensive lineman. If that guy can play 2+ positions, there's value in that. I'd rather have my backup center be a guy that's not just a center. Yeah. A guy like Monheim could play guard or center. Whereas, Coleman Shelton, Doug Kramer, I know he played a few snaps at left guard, they're really only centers. So that hurts your value as a player in the league.
100%. NFL news, Bobby Wagner re-signs with the Commanders. 1 year,
really?
$9.5 million
All right.
deal.
That seems like a fair deal. He's not peak Wagner, but he's still good. Doesn't cover that well, but leader, good
Defends
against the run.
Yeah.
Thumper still, so.
Yeah. Devo, if there is a player that is still on the board late in the first round to move up, who would you take?
Still on the board. I think guys that I would trade back into the first round for, if I was nervous about them not getting to 39 or maybe they slipped a bit, like a Zabel, Donovan Jackson. I really don't know where he's going to go. If you don't get Jeanty, if Hampton's there in the late 20s, would you move up? I would consider that. If one of the edges slips, if Michael Williams is there in the mid-late 20s somehow, that would be appealing to me. So I think those are a few guys that I would consider. I probably wouldn't do it because you have Cole Kmet, but if Colston Loveland got to the 20s, would I consider that? Probably not, but I think he's a top 15, 18 player in this draft, so if he was there at 28, that's interesting. But I think that's going to be the fun part about this draft is I think it's going to be a lot of, whoa, or really he's still not drafted, or what happened to this guy? It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, because where, guys like me and Harry or, other content creators / people that cover the NFL, they may view a player as a first-round guy. NFL teams may not.
Yep. Well, and if we're to believe what most of the leaks and reporting are, that most teams have 11 to 13 first-round grades, well, that's not even half the first round.
Nope.
So, you're going to get all I would guess the over-under at, like, maybe not shocking picks, but surprise picks in the first round is, I don't know, like 6.5. Like, I would guess there's a handful of picks at least that you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Whether it's going too high or too low or whatever. So, and I think because of that, you might see a lot of trades because you might see a team that's like, whoa, we have a high second round grade for this guy, but he's still on the board at 26, and in this draft, that's clearly the second round. We're going to go trade up and get him. So it's going to be interesting.
I'll make a bold prediction. I think it's not even bold. John Schneider's trading down in this draft.
Okay.
He's a notorious trade down GM, and especially in this draft where a lot of the value's on day
Along
two.
with how many players they've cut, they might just load up on day 2 players.
Yeah.
I could see that.
So, and Schneider won't be the only one. There will be other GMs that will trade down out of this draft. So, all right, Jay, trade Edmonds, and I think he means draft Mike Green.
Yeah. Tremaine, I just, especially with Sanborn not getting tendered, which I don't want to call it a mistake, but I am a little surprised. I think a tender for him is only like $3 million, then you at least gives you the right to match if a team signs him to an offer sheet. So I'm a little surprised by that one. Maybe there's still a world where they re-sign him, but it seems unlikely. If you trade Tremaine Edmonds, it saves you 12.6. If you cut him, it only saves you 4 and change. Who's trading for Edmonds, though? Like, a team's taking on $15 million in cap hit if they trade for him. Like, I've probably been a little harsher on him than most, but, like, to me, he's been, at least with the Bears, average to above average. You're paying him to be a premium starter. Not just a starter, a premium starter. Zach Bond just signed for $17 million per year. Edmonds makes $18 million per year on average over the course of his contract. I know it's only been one season. Zach Bond last year had a better year than any year Tremaine Edmonds has ever had. So, like, I just don't think he's that tradable. I think with Tremaine, you just got to hope that he plays a little better with Dennis Allen this year. And even if he doesn't, you cut him next year. And linebacker next offseason becomes, like, a big target, a big emphasis. But to the super chat earlier, with Sanborn out of the picture, you're probably going to have to add a linebacker. I know they re-signed Ahmed Bamiga earlier today, but to me, he's a special teamer first and foremost. You're going to have to get a third backer, whether it's in the draft or in free agency. So we'll see who that player ends up being.
Agreed.
I don't think it's Noah Sewell.
Yeah. I like Demetrius Knight in this draft. I think he's one of my favorite draft prospects. I don't see the Bears potentially drafting.
To me, 72 is the earliest I'm considering linebacker.
Yeah,
right?
and he's going day 2.
Yeah.
So, round 2, excuse me.
Like, can you find someone in a trade down where you get an extra third or a fourth, somewhere in that range, that can be a high-level backup or your Sam linebacker?
Yeah,
like, I'm not trying to –
I'm
not picking one of my first 3 picks as a linebacker.
Yeah, and Stutzman could be an option because he is a true, like, Mike position. Like, I see Mr. Perry says they'll probably draft Carson Swessinger. He's more of a Will. Like, he's more of a TJ Edwards type of linebacker. Now, do you want to double up that same position? I don't know.
Well, maybe there's some overlap there with what you're losing in Sanborn, where he can help you as a rookie.
Even then, he probably goes round 2.
Yeah, they did meet with him at the combine, so that's interesting. But that should have been a signal, by the way, when they met with a couple linebackers that Sanborn was leaving. Didn't think about that at the time. Oh well.
You live and you learn.
DT, the Bears get Dalman. Who would you like the Bears to go get afterwards? Fill out the roster. I'd like to find a vet, low-priced wide receiver 3. Bring someone into the fold to at least compete. I think Tim Patrick's a name. Knows the system. High character guy. Willing blocker. I'll throw a name out there. If the Jets cut Allen Lazard, he's one of the best blocking receivers in the league. Now, he drops a lot of passes, but if his role is to just be a badass blocker and then catch 35 balls, I'd be cool with that. I don't think he'd cost you that much at all. He was terrible with the Jets last year, but he's a hell of a blocker. He's always been one of the best blocking wide receivers. Whoever that third receiver is going to need to block, which is why Tyler Scott could be fighting an uphill battle, because at sub 200 pounds, it's going to be hard to be a top-end blocker.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, look, there's multiple avenues you can go down. Actually, you know what? Since we're on the topic of linebacker, we'll get to your super chat in a second. Harry, I think you know what time it is.
Oh, it's time for our favorite segment, America's favorite segment, Colin's Draft Crushes. Take it away, Colin.
Well, for those of you who are wondering, these are the list of everyone so far. Everybody from Manungai to Makuba to Oladeo. By the way, Harry, I don't know if you saw during the Combine, Keandre Lambert-Smith, potential day 3 option for the Bears, ran a 4.37.
He can burn.
He can burn. So, again, taking from what we did last time, and the fact that, again, I don't know if they'll invest a day 2 target per se in a wide receiver, but I figure I'd at least, explore that side. Maybe if this guy, if you're potentially, depending on how you fill out for agency and everything, this is who I came up with. The 11th Colin's Draft Crush, Jalen Noel out of Iowa State.
Love it. Love it. Had a great combine.
Great combine. Ran a 4.39, so a little slower than Keandre Lambert-Smith, if that's okay for those needing a speedster. But he's an absolute burner, man. He's like a human joystick. He really is.
He's a good route runner, too.
He really is. And one-on-one situations, I mean, the slot cornerback's in trouble when going up against this guy. He has a little bit of return experience, great punt returner and kick returner, so he adds that element along with his skills. But he had back-to-back years of, I believe, over 70 receptions, 1,100 yards, and I think 7 or 8 touchdowns in back-to-back years in the Big 12. So, to me, like, if you're looking for speed, somebody to take off the top off of the defense while also, giving you return upside, this guy right here, I think is going to really change. He's risen up draft boards. I think early on in the draft process, he was looked at as potential day 3 guy, like not sure.
I think he's a firm day 2.
Yeah,
now.
I think he's potentially top 50.
The question is, does he get to 72 if you're the Bears? Yeah. That seems unlikely. I think there's a chance. 39-41 feels a little early, so he kind of feels in between the window of where they're going to be picking. Maybe there's if they trade down from one of those second-round picks, they could get him, which I'd be all for. I don't know if he was their full-time punt returner last year, but he averaged 15.3 yards per punt on 13 returns, so he's pretty explosive in that area as well.
Yeah,
I think as a rookie, he'd probably would be a punt returner for a team because he'd probably be like a wide receiver 3 for most teams that draft him.
Yeah, 26 yards per kickoff return. So, I mean, he's explosive when back there. And, I mean, like I said, he's not perfect by any means. Obviously, you see size 5'10" and a quarter with 194. Can he get pressed a little bit? Yes. And then he needs to get bigger. But, dude, like the speed doesn't lie. And I think he's going to be a matchup nightmare for somebody like Ben Johnson that, DJ has good speed. Rome has good speed. This guy has potential elite speed.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, like, just route combinations, too, like where your big body Rome's running like a slant and you run like a wheel off of that with Noel against man coverage looks. You're just getting that rub route and he separates. Like, that's – yeah, I think he has a chance to be a really good receiver in the NFL, especially out of the slot. I think he gives you return value, especially as a rookie. So, I mean – I get 72, it'd be a home run. I would probably view it a tick early at 39 or 41, but Johnson might view this guy as the Bears' version of Jamison Williams.
Yeah.
Or at least something close to that. So
yeah. Higgins is more, like I thought about Jaden Higgins as well, the teammate from Iowa State. He's just more of an X to me where he's like a firm outside guy, whereas this guy gives you pure slot mobility and, like I said, the extra added special teams element. So
yeah, and I think this year the receiver roles, I think Rome will be the X, which I think that was a mistake last year. I get Rome was a rookie, but DJ's not an X. Can he give you some snacks as an X? But he's not really like this boundary, like, to me he's a textbook Z.
Yeah.
Where you can do different things with him. He runs really good what's the route? Dig routes, similar to Deebo Samuel in that sense. But he's not a great full route tree guy. Mm-hmm. Although I do think he's a better route runner than Deebo. Yeah. But I think he's a Z, Rome's an X, and then a guy like this is your slot. But I think the beauty of DJ and Rome is they can move around. They can play some in the slot. They can both swap between X and Z. So I think you'll have optionality throughout the course of games and seasons. But I think if you get that burner out of the slot, I think you're pretty set. at receiver for the foreseeable future. So
Yeah.
that'd be a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. I mean, he's had, just to round it off here, 7 career touchdowns of over 50 yards, which I think that's like the most by any Cyclone since 1971. So a little random fact there. He's really impressive. Like his broad jump was 99th percentile. He had a 41.5-inch vert, so he can go up and get it. Like he provides a lot of intriguing kind of just intrigue when it comes to a wide receiver room. And yeah, look, I mean, this is probably, in terms of day 2 guys, this is a guy that I can see working in a lot of NFL offenses because you do see a lot of 11 personnel where you have 3 wide receivers out there, and I think he's a clear wide receiver 3 at minimum with special teams upside. So
yeah. All right, Cullen's weekly draft crush.
Yeah.
We'll see if we could probably work these into our live shows next week.
I was gonna say I don't know how you want to do that given the fact.
I mean, there will be downtime. I mean, we've averaged 9-hour streams.
It's true.
The last 2 years, so feel free to get a few bios. Kind of get your brain flowing over the weekend.
I was about to say,
might even have to do like some fan-led mocks.
Maybe
during these long streams.
That could be interesting.
So, buckle up, people.
Buckle up. What position you guys want to do? Could it be linebacker? I mean, that could be another position I'd take a look at. I gave it.
Could be worth looking at. Yeah, with Sanborn out, I don't hate that. Take a look at linebackers. You guys let us know what position next for our next Cullen Crushes draft segment. All right, we'll hit Prendergast here. Build the lines. Running back Auburn, Rogers / Sanders, USC. Is that Rocket Sanders out of South Carolina? Is that who we're talking about here? I think it is.
I'm assuming so.
Not familiar with the Auburn guy, but Sanders had a pretty good year. He started his career at Arkansas, transferred to South Carolina, had almost 900 yards, 11 touchdowns, tested pretty well at the combine as well. Had a career best 316 receiving yards. I think he's a day 3 back, but he could be an option later in the draft. Chicago Bears.
Yeah, Super Bowl 61 champs, I believe. That's what it says.
Oh, love it. Thoughts on Nash Hutmetcher out of Nebraska? I don't know much about him, but I do know the Ty Robinson. Stay tuned. Ty Robinson out of Nebraska. Really good 6th-year senior, kind of a late bloomer, and then had a really good combine. So he could be an interesting option. All right, Marcus Hargrave release. You interested? Yep. We hit him a couple weeks ago. We kind of knew this was coming. So, yeah, he can't sign with the team until the new league year starts on Wednesday. I'm not sure. Like, I would imagine the Niners allow him to speak with other teams, but there can't. I don't think there can even be a reported deal until Wednesday on that one. So that'll be interesting to see how that one goes.
Interesting. The chat's saying tight end / safety.
Okay.
And someone specifically said not linebackers, although DC says linebacker Sanborn replacement.
No, sounds like the ball's in your court.
Yeah, we may do a surprise. Like I said, now you're giving me. I mean, we're getting to the point now where I'm just.
Cycling through.
Yeah. Jacob says, we doing beer bongs or anything today, fellas? I'll throw one out there. If we get, what's the highest super chat we've gotten today?
20, I think.
10. No,
or is it 10?
Have we gotten a 20?
Maybe
I think
not.
it's 10.
10, 20.
If we get a $20 super chat, I'll rip a beer bong.
All right.
Why not?
If we get 2 20s, I'll do one as well.
Thank you, Eric.
So, or if someone sent in a 40, that'd be fine.
That's an interesting name for the super chat that just came in. Big will take us to the Super Bowl in 2026.
That'd be awesome. So do you mean the 2026 season or literally in 26? Because the 2025 season Super Bowl is played in the year of 2026. So there you go.
That's a little.
Well, Jacob's got a 20.
Ooh, say less.
Someone matching them?
Someone match. Well, yeah, we'll leave it out there.
Someone matching them?
We got a mock draft coming up, but if you guys want to see us get down and party on a Thursday, what drive are you doing this weekend, by the way? I forgot to ask.
So we're going to Abilene, where my parents live and where I grew up, tomorrow. Then Saturday, we're driving to Midland, which is another 2 hours west, to go see my grandparents we haven't seen in a while. Didn't get to see them over the holidays, so need to do that. driving back to Abilene Saturday night, driving back here Sunday. Half the reason, at least, that we're going, other than seeing family, is we have to drop PJ off because his spring break at his daycare is different from my wife's spring break, which is just so convenient. So that is why. All right, there it is. There it is. Let's do this, Colin.
We'll do the segment first.
Let's do the segment, and then we'll do the beer bong race. So shout out to Jacob. Appreciate that, Jacob. And then we got Peace coming in here saying bear down as well. And we're over $200 in super, so we appreciate you guys. And
I'm also just looking at the script. Do you want to open the way that it's built, or do you want to just...
I don't even know what I did. Let me see.
There, I'll put my cursor there.
Yeah, I totally forgot to have an intro. Just open, or can you just do like a... Can you just read only an L3 and just be like, now, Chicago Bears mock draft 8.0, and then we'll just dive straight into it like that.
I can do that. Give me 1 second.
That's all we need, though.
Yeah.
That's all we need. Did I see that Ronald Darby got cut, too?
Yeah, I mentioned that.
Oh, did you mention that? Okay.
Yeah. Here's Pieces of Lie with the bear down. Appreciate you, brother.
Let's go, Peace. Appreciate you.
There. I'm going to build that real quick, and then we'll get into the segment.
Appreciate that.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, Marshall just sent me screenshots. Slick Rick DM'd him.
Ooh.
He said, do you think Rodgers to the Giants is most likely? This is Marshall asking Ricky Scoops. Feel like it's him or Russ. He said, at this moment, yes, and I agree Russ is the other option, but I think Russ goes back to Pittsburgh. He said, you the man. Twitter is better with you on it. This is Marshall. Thanks for making it fun for all of us. Rick said, honored and appreciate it. Your stuff is great. GOAT. He's clearly a Giants fan.
No, he's clearly also, hey, Giants sports guy. Should we sign Slick Rick? Electric.
I've literally said that. I'm like, we should hire Slick Rick as our insider. Imagine if he just did what he did now and just at Chat Sports in every tweet. Dude, we would grow so much. It'd be awesome.
Dude, yeah, we'd get shade thrown at us by Pelissero.
What did he say that one time?
Oh, my God.
People pretending to be pretending to have sources?
Or something like that. It's just like, yeah.
Ricky's the people's insider.
Ricky is the people's
He's not corporate. He's just a dog on Twitter.
Yeah. Soldier Bear Draft Crush. Jalen Noel, the wide receiver at Iowa State.
If you scroll back on the stream like 5 minutes, you'll see it.
Yep.
All right, here we go. We still have 2 more segments, so we got to hustle here because I got to pack tonight. I got all kinds of shit I got to do. All right, mock draft time. Let's get to it. It's time for another Chicago Bears mock draft here on Bears Now by Chat Sports. My name is Harrison Graham. This is mock draft 8.0 after the combine, after the trades of Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson. So let's just dive straight into it here. And at number 10 overall, I'm taking Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. And listen, I think this is going to gain some steam. I think Jeanty, after the additions to the offensive line, is absolutely in play at number 10. It was pretty clear, the reporting out of the combine, that they like Jeanty. He was the first top 30 visit announced that's going to be visiting Hallis Hall. And when you trade for Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson, and now center's really your only clear hole on your offensive line, what does that do? It keeps you flexible going into the draft. You can absolutely take Ashton Jeanty at number 10 if you want to. And by the way, he may not even be available at 10. I'd say that's probably 50-50 odds. He could certainly go as early as at 6 potentially to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think he's a terrific prospect. I think he's one of the 4, 5, or 6 best prospects in this draft. So, for everyone who says you can't go running back at 10, if those people are also saying BPA, if Ashton Jeanty gets to 10, that's almost certainly the best player available. Because if you're just going at overall prospect in this draft, he's one of the best 5 or 6. And if you get him at 10, that's a clear BPA situation. You can feel Ben Johnson's presence already with the roster construction here go get Jonah Jackson, a guy he's familiar with, a brawler on the interior. Alongside with Ryan Poles, go get Joe Thuney, a guy Poles is familiar with in Kansas City, and anybody who knows anything about football knows he's a big-time player playing in two of the best dynasties in NFL history with the Chiefs and Mahomes and Reed, and then with the Patriots under Brady and Belichick. Like, you get that guy in here. That guy alone is going to elevate your offensive line. Jeanty could be the pick, running behind these guys. So I think it's in play. It's something I'm more open to than ever. I don't know if he's my absolute top guy that I would take at 10, but at this point, if they took Jeanty at 10, I would not be upset about it. I'd be pretty damn excited. Who do you want the Bears to take with the number 10 pick in the draft? Do you want Ashton Jeanty? Do you want Will Campbell, who may or may not be there? Armand Mimbu? How about Tyler Warren? Is that an option at this point in time? Let us know. Drop a name in the comment section below. Okay, we're going to trade up with the Houston Texans. I trade 39, 72, and 149, second, third, and a fifth for a first and a fourth. Get 25 and 126 overall. Move back into round one. Still have a second-round pick. Pick up a fourth-round pick as well while losing a third and a fifth. I think the value adds up there pretty well on the draft chart. And then I go get the one position not filled on my line is center, which is Zabel. Now, he's versatile. He doesn't have to be a center. He could play both guard spots as well. But I'd be shocked at this point if this guy fell out of the first round. He's been one of the fast risers in the draft, and I think he was on teams' radars at the end of the college football season, but they wanted to see what he would do at the Senior Bowl against Power 4 competition, going up against SEC pass rushers, Big Ten pass rushers, and he dominated. He wasn't just good, he was dominant. He was one of the best players at the Senior Bowl. He had good on-field workouts in Indianapolis, even though he didn't do all the kind of testing athletic drills, although the one he did do, a vertical jump, just under 37 inches, pretty damn impressive for a 6'6", 315-pound cat. He's going to be a first-round pick. I just don't see how he's not. He's athletic. He's got positional versatility. And in a draft that's weak at center and he can play center, that's going to elevate his stock. I think trading back into the 20s to get him if he's still there is pretty damn good. And if you plug him into this offensive line, you're kind of set. Now, I think you would go get a left tackle in the draft or free agency to compete with Braxton Jones / have a guy ready to go because he is recovering from a pretty serious leg injury. Do they feel comfortable enough with just Karan Amagaji being that competition / kind of placeholder? That feels a little rich. I think they would add someone in there. But if Zabel plugs in at center and maybe they sign a veteran one-year guy, unless they feel good about Bates being that, which I don't feel great about, then you're kind of set at that center position. Okay, I'm going to trade again. So I still have 41, but I'm trading back. The Colts came calling. I move back 4 spots, pick up a fourth in the process, 116 overall. So we'll see what I do with those selections coming up. But I do have to tell you guys first about our sponsor, Rocket Money. Are you spending too much money? Are your savings starting to decrease a little bit? It's okay, it happens, but you got to get back on track. And Rocket Money is going to help you do just that, as it is a personal finance app that can find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. Let's talk about that a little bit. You can upload your bills to the Rocket Money app, and they will find the best prices available. Now, you may have to switch providers, but for example, if you're paying $100 for your phone bill, you might be able to get it down to $80. They can lower your bills by up to 20% sometimes, which is a pretty awesome opportunity. It can save you a lot of money. You can cancel those subscriptions you no longer want with just a few taps. They'll kind of serve as a middleman for you, so you don't have to deal with back and forth customer service with a specific streaming provider or whatever the case may be. Rocket Money is here to serve you, and they have saved their 5 million users and counting a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions alone. And if you're a member, you can save up to $740 per year when you use all of the app's features, which include just normal banking things like checking your credit score, your daily statement, bills that are upcoming. You can set budgets, and they will kind of send you alerts. It's absolutely awesome. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/bearsnow. It is rocketmoney.com/bearsnow. That link is in the comments and in the description. One more time, rocketmoney.com/bearsnow. Use our link to support the show and ultimately support yourself, because you'll stay on top of your finances. Okay, let's go JT Tuimoloau at 45 overall. Did not do the testing stuff in Indy. You got to remember, these Ohio State guys, they played deep into January. They've played a lot of football, so remember a couple of them pulled out of the Senior Bowl too to just kind of rest up and then start the training process. But I thought after a disappointing early part of his college career, he kind of finally put it all together. You started to see flashes his junior year, and then this year he was really good, especially in the college football playoff when the stakes were the highest. 6.5 sacks in 4 playoff games en route to a national championship. He did do the measurements in Indianapolis, and to me, this screams Dennis Allen. 6'4", 265, long arms, almost 34 inches, big hands. He's got those paws, 10.5-inch hands as well. I mean, that's textbook Dennis Allen. He's not 6'6", but he's pretty long and athletic and powerful. 265, that's more Dennis Allen speed. So I think at day 2, I mean, really 39-41 chunk would be perfectly fine for him. But in a small trade down, somewhere in the top 50, 55, if he's sitting there, I think he's got untapped potential still. Like I said, he kind of just started to put it all together this year. He was a former number 1 overall recruit. I think he has a chance, maybe not to be an all-pro, but a really good starter in the NFL. I think that's absolutely could be in his future. Okay, no round 3 pick due to the trade up for Gray Zabel, so we fall to round 4 here. Tory Horton, the wide receiver out of Colorado State. I don't think we've taken him in a mock before, but I do like the idea of getting a receiver. He's got some size, but can also play in the slot. He's about 6'2", 200. He had 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. This year, his season got cut short due to a season-ending knee surgery, but it wasn't like an ACL. He was back in time to work out at the NFL Combine. Numbers were a little below pace anyway this year for whatever reason, but he's got a lot of games under his belt and a lot of success at the Group of 5 level. Smooth route runner, good speed, good size, can play multiple positions. I think his best position in the NFL is slot because he's a little wiry. He's not 215 or anything at 6'2", but he's around that 200-pound range. And I thought, especially coming off an injury, he tested pretty well. I mean, 9.4 in the relative athletic score out of 10. That's upper echelon. Ran a 4.41 at that size. Good vertical jump as well. So you see the explosive nature of his game. He's not incredibly explosive, but he's a good athlete. He's got good speed, runs good routes. I think early day 3 like this, late day 2 is probably what you're looking at. So 4th round for Tory Horton. Come in, compete to be that 3rd receiver. I think that's a good range for him and would be an intriguing player for this offense. If you want more Bears mock drafts, hit that subscribe button. We're cranking them out almost every single week at this point. The feedback's been good. If you don't want them, then let us know, but we'll keep doing more draft content if you guys want us to. Then with our next 4th round pick, remember we traded down again here. Ty Robinson, the defensive tackle out of Nebraska. PFF has not updated their simulator with some of their prospects post-combine. This guy is a fast riser. I think there's a chance he sneaks into day 2, but I think early day 3 is proper. He's older, 6-year college player, late bloomer, broke out this year. There was flashes earlier in his career, but this year he was fantastic. And the biggest question for him going into the combine was, does the production meet the athletic profile? I think that was a bit of an unknown for Ty Robinson. He checked that box and then some. He's very athletic. Now, it appears, I think he shedded a little weight for the combine, for the testing, but I still think that he checked those boxes to show teams that he is an athletic guy, can do some different things for you. I think he's a plug-and-play rotation guy right away. Long-term, maybe he's kind of a solid starter, but pretty good pass rusher, plays the run pretty well, broke out with 7 sacks last year. And look, insert name, they need to find a defensive tackle in this draft. There are so many good ones. I think there's, is there 28 defensive tackles in this draft that can be contributors in the NFL? 20-plus for sure. Obviously, they're not all going to be starters, but I think Ty Robinson can come in and help a team. I think he's better than Zach Pickens right now. I really, really do. So you get a guy like this in the 4th round, I think that's pretty good. Okay, no 5th, no 6th based on the trading we did. 7th round pick, C.J. Dippre, the tight end out of Alabama. Good blocker. Sixth, seventh round pick. If you can find a tight end that can block, that works. Now, to be fair, you've kind of got that with Durham Smythe now. So can one of those two guys be a true tight end too? We'll see. And then Xavier Truss, the offensive lineman out of Georgia. He's interesting. Played right tackle the last 2 years. He's kind of a tackle guard hybrid. I don't think he's a great player, but I think there's, what have I said before? Day 3 offensive lineman. Can you get versatility? I think this guy could do that where, he could play some tackle in a pinch, play some guard in a pinch. So definitely like that. Georgia has a history of developing offensive linemen. So a guy who wasn't one of the more higher caliber ones, but has 2 years of starting experience, I like that quite a bit. Okay, grade Bears mock draft 8.0. ABCDRF, let us know how we did here when it comes to our latest mock draft. Obviously, the Ashton Jeanty scenario seems to be more and more possible after the trades for the 2 guards, so give us your thoughts. My name is Harrison Graham. Don't forget to subscribe to Chicago Bears Now. We will continue to bring you guys content here on a daily basis. Bear down.
Great up. Rap reported that Joey Bosa, it hasn't been ruled out that a return to the Chargers. So some Bears adjacent news there for you.
Interesting. They took on $11 million dead cap when they cut him, so they saved 25. I mean, if they re-sign him to, I can't imagine it would be more than like 8 or 9 million, because if they give him 9, they're basically paying him 20, right? Because of the dead cap. So I think that would be the most they're giving him.
Agreed.
Be interesting.
Agreed.
That could be. I wonder if part of that door not being shut is Khalil Mack. Like if they lose Mack, do they circle back to Bosa? Right?
Maybe. I'll get that.
That's disappointing.
I got to go grab a couple beer bongs anyway, so.
All right. Colin's going to get the beer bongs. I'll answer some questions in the chat. All right. Dawson in the chat. James says, what is the word on a comp pick if Keenan leaves? No one talks about this anymore. The formula is always tough to figure out. Now, with the Bears trading for a couple guys, if they don't go crazy in free agency, they could get a comp pick back, like a 4th or a 5th. It'll depend on how many guys they sign versus how much they lose. But I don't think Keenan's back, if I had to guess. It's been quiet around him, though. I haven't really heard it much new, if I'm being completely honest. So yeah, we'll see how that one ends up playing out. Jordan says, Hendrickson for a 3rd, I heard tonight. Insane if we don't pull the trigger on that. Where did you hear that, Jordan? If they trade a 3rd for Trey Hendrickson, we're partying. Someone in the chat says he hears Hendrickson for a 3rd is happening tonight. If it's Ricky, I believe it. What do we got here? Cold. Let's let this. Let's do the last segment, and then we'll do this. See, yesterday we went straight warm beers, not great. This one, ice cold. You got to find that middle ground. That's the speed. Playboy says, how do you feel about Ariante Ursary, Minnesota tackle? We've talked about him multiple times. I like him on day 2. I think he could kind of fill that box that Poles is talking about, competition at left tackle. I think that could be the case, and if they feel good about him, maybe he's the starter long term. Oh, man. We need to bring Mac back home. I'd be in on it, man. I'd be in on it. Jordan said CBS. CBS Sports tweeted that? I saw Mina Kimes mention, the first team she mentioned for Hendrickson was the Bears. She's just throwing teams out there. She wasn't reporting it. If you could get him for a 3rd, I mean, that is just a no-brainer to me. That is a no-brainer. So Brad Biggs put out an article this morning, by the way, saying that a player personnel director from another team said that with the Bears trading for 2 offensive linemen, that might signal that the Bears are going to pivot to defensive line as the free agent negotiation window opens. In an ideal world, they would get a player who is on the right side of 30, entering his second contract, prime years of his career. So that would not necessarily be Trey Hendrickson. But that was before Trey Hendrickson became available as well.
Update on the DK Metcalf trade.
What do we got?
So John Schneider on Seattle Sports said this. Everything, and it's a little bit of a long quote, so bear with me. Everything is in a very cordial and professional place with DK Metcalf. Says obviously DK has requested a trade, and we are entertaining that. We are talking to a ton of teams, taking offers, seeing what they look like. Worst case scenario, we have an amazing, explosive, powerful athlete playing receiver for us again in 2025. So we'll see where this goes. And then they asked him about the timing between the Metcalf news and Tyler Lockett's release. Probably not intentional, but very disappointed in the timing. We wanted this to be a very special day, Tyler Lockett Day. And then, you definitely want to know what's going on before draft time. Know what we're going to see compensate for his loss if he's not with us. So they are going to trade him. It looks like they are going to try to do it before the draft.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I mean, if they're cool with trading him, I would imagine. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if that happened like in the next week.
Yeah.
Things are heating up, man. NFL, gotta love it.
Honestly, could happen this weekend, or it could happen during free agency next week.
You could. Sometimes you see moves like that happen like a day or two into free agency to see like what other wide receiver move. Like that happened with Adams a couple years ago. I think it was day 2 of free agency after some of the wide receiver movement happened.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. All right, we got one more segment, and then Cullen and I will knock out this beer bong race on the way out. So stick with us here on Chicago Bears Now. Let's get into it. I take a look at some free agent targets here for the Chicago Bears. NFL free agency is around the corner, and on today's episode of Chicago Bears Now, I take a look at some free agent targets as things have already been busy in the NFL leading up to Monday, and things are going to continue to be very, very fascinating for the Chicago Bears. So stick with us here as we are going to go over some players. Here are a couple dates to note. The tampering period starts Monday at 12 Eastern time. For teams. That's really when deals start getting agreed to. They can't be inked until the new league year occurs. It's kind of like with all these trades that have happened. Technically, those can't be official until then, 4 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday. But all the deals start getting agreed to on Monday, so we will be live covering all of that. Okay, let's start going through some players here. We'll start with Drew Dalman, the center, obviously a prominent name that we've discussed quite a bit. Since trading for Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson, I think there's a bit of a split among the fan base. Do you want to pay top dollar? I would do PFF's projected contract. 4 for 56, 14 a year, about half the contract guaranteed. I would do that. I also don't think that's what he's going to get. I think he's going to get more. And I think that price has steadily gone up. A guy like Mitch Morse retires. Well, that's another team that needs a center. Once Trey Smith came off the market, once the Bears traded for Joe Thuney, like these interior linemen, there's less and less available. And I think that teams are a little desperate because it's not a great center free agency group. It's not a great center draft. And Drew Dalman is hitting the market at the right time because he's a good, even though he's not a great player, he's a good player in his prime. That is the best combination of young and pretty good. Like he's a fringe top 10 center in the NFL. He's really good in wide zone schemes. It feels like the Bears are shifting a little more to a gap scheme, so I don't know if that's a great fit for Dalman as an undersized center, but beggars can't be choosers at the same time. I certainly understand that. It's a supply and demand issue, but I'd be, as that price goes up, it makes me a little more nervous. Again, if the PFF deal's on the table, I would do it. You start getting $16, $17, $18 million per year, Creed Humphrey money, I get a little bit more nervous. How much are you willing to pay Drew Dalman per year? Just throw a number, 15, 12, 20. What are you willing to pay Drew Dalman on an annual basis? I think you get beyond 16. I get really nervous. I think that's kind of high end for me. So you guys let me know, what are you willing to pay for Drew Dalman? Okay, Khalil Mack is our next Bears free agent target. Obviously spent a lot of time with the Bears. I'm intrigued by PFF's contract projection. 2 years, $45 million, basically all of it guaranteed. It's $22.5 million per year. That feels on the high end. Like, that feels the opposite of the Dalman projection. Like, I feel like 14 a year at this point, what we've heard about Dalman feels on the low end. I think 22, 23, that's probably in the high end. It could get there for Mack. It's not a strong edge group. Again, supply demand. He's still a very good player. I will say this. I would be okay with it because unlike Dalman, you're talking about a 1 or 2 year deal, right? If you want to give Khalil Mack north of $20 million per year on a 1 or 2 year deal, it's not crippling you long term. Now, if he wanted 3 or 4 years at 34 years old, I'm passing on that. 1 2 year deal, if you got to overpay, hey, that's free agency. You need a pass rusher. Khalil Mack is still a very good player. You don't need him to be a star, but can he be a guy that helps you in the short term? Maybe you draft an edge on day 2 as well to develop under him. He could certainly help that guy out, help an Austin Booker out. I think there's a lot of value. I think what he would bring to the defense is a lot of what Joe Thuney would bring to the offense. I think Thuney is a better player for what he brings on the field than Mack does at this point. But what both would provide is incredible leadership and just guidance for younger players on this team. So if you can get that on a 1 or 2 year deal, I'm definitely very open to it. And it's just a major position of need, let's be honest. Joey Bosa is another guy the Bears could look at in free agency. He was released by the Chargers. Probably a 1 to 2 year deal for him as well. PFF doesn't have a projection for him because he just got released. But he's been declining in play. He's had some injury issues in recent seasons. Now, last year he played in 14 games, although he did leave multiple other games, kind of like Tevin Jenkins. It's a little misleading in terms of how many games he actually played. But, 5 sacks, couple forced fumbles. He can still be disruptive. I think that's what you're hoping for if you bring him in. Can you give you 5 to 7 sacks? 7's probably on the high end. Play 12 to 15 games. That's probably what you're hoping for. I would rather have Khalil Mack than Joey Bosa if I'm picking between the two Chargers. Now, there's a report out there that the door is not completely shut on a Bosa return to L.A. That could be dependent on if they're able to get Mack back or not. So they could pivot back to Bosa on a cheaper deal. So it'll be interesting to see how the Chargers play through. It kind of feels like they want one of those guys back. They kind of know / understand they're not going to get both back, but they would like one back. Feels like they'd rather have Mack, but if he gets priced out, I think Mack and his reps will probably want to hit free agency, see what his market is. Then maybe the Chargers pivot back to Bosa, and maybe the Bears are the team that poached Khalil Mack from the Chargers. Wouldn't mind Bosa, but whereas Khalil Mack's projected to potentially get north of $20 million, I'm cutting that in half for Bosa. I'm $10 million is probably about as high as I'm going for him, at least with the base salary. If they want to add incentives, that's cool. But the injuries, the decline in play, it's evident. Bears Now will be live pretty much all of next week. For sure, the first 3 days of free agency, we'll see kind of where things sit after that. But it's going to be a blast. Myself, producer Colin, we're going to be rocking. We're going to be rolling. It's going to be a lot of fun breaking down not just every Bears move, but every rumor out there, every other signing across the NFL. If you're just an NFL fan, this is going to be a fun channel for you guys to hang out with. We'll bring you guys the informative analysis, our takes on everything happening, plus everything else Bears and free agency related. Should be a lot of fun. Trades will happen as well. We'll have that all covered. Our next free agent target is Javon Hargrave. Now, he's getting a post-June 1st designation, so he doesn't technically free up until the start of the league year on Wednesday. I'm not sure, admittedly, if he's allowed to negotiate with other teams in the meantime. That could be if the Niners let him or not. There's technicalities with those things sometimes. But I do know this. He was interested, the Bears were interested in him, and I think vice versa, in 2023. But that price just kept going up. I mean, the Niners ended up giving him 4 for $85. I think the Bears were in for like 18 a year. And he got priced out because he had that massive year with Philadelphia where he had 11 sacks back in 2022. And look, he tore his triceps last year. That's kind of a fluky injury. That's not like a soft tissue or a torn ACL, these injuries that constantly happen in the NFL. So if you look at the course of his career, he actually is not really an injury-prone player. Now, he is going to be 32, so as you get older, especially as a trenches guy, you're more susceptible, but he's never missed more than one game in a season in his career before last year, which, again, was not like a knee or an ankle or an Achilles, these injuries that pop up. Torn triceps, kind of fluky. So I think he can come in, be a good disruptive interior pass rusher. He does not play the run. So, he'd be a heavy rotation guy, but I think for the right price, I'd be pretty interested. Similar situation with Jonathan Allen. Now, we are filming this, full disclosure, on Thursday afternoon. So if any of these guys get signed or cut or whatever, all this stuff, there's a chance some of this stuff is slightly dated. But as of now, Allen technically is still with the Commanders. But all the reporting suggests if they don't find a trade for him, they're going to cut him. And the latest reporting is there's not much trade interest. So there's a very good chance he'll get cut. I do not want to trade for Jonathan Allen unless it's like, the Christian Kirk trade where it's like future seventh, whatever the case may be. But if he frees up, I'm very interested because kind of like Hargrave, good interior pass rusher. Neither really defends the run that well. I mean, they're just not good run stoppers at this stage in their career. Hargrave never really has been. Allen the last couple years has slipped. Maybe he'd bounce back in a Dennis Allen scheme. I'm not sure. But they can get after the quarterback. They can dent the pocket. And if those guys, if you get one of them to come in there, can do that for, $8, $9, $10 million on a one-year deal, I think that's worthwhile because you need more disruption from your defensive line for opposing quarterbacks. Pick a defensive lineman. We just talked about 4 of them. Who would you want the most? Type KM for Khalil Mack, JB for Joey Bosa, JH for Javon Hargrave, or JA for Jonathan Allen. I think edge is a bigger need, but Hargrave and Allen could be a little cheaper there in the interior. Let us know who you guys want. Get yourself an FGB t-shirt at chatsports.com/FGB. If you effing hate the Packers, get yourself an FGB shirt. Link is in the comments and in the description of this video. Okay, we'll kind of rapid fire through some other positions here. Other center options beyond Drew Dalman. Ryan Kelly, I really like him as a 1 or 2 year option. 32 years old, 6'4", 307. He's not a bruiser, but he's a little bit bigger than Drew Dalman. He could be an interesting stopgap option. Maybe the Bears draft somebody as well. Josh Myers, similar. He's a little younger, but I view him as a 1 to 2 year guy. 6'5", 310, so he's a little bigger as well. You could bring back Coleman Shelton. Him and Caleb Williams, he started all 17 games last year, so there'd be some familiarity, obviously. Austin Corbett is a name out there. Bradley Bozeman had a bad year with the Chargers, but in more of a gap scheme, he's more of a bruising center. Maybe he would be like a really cheap lower-end option. I think you'd almost certainly would have to draft someone in that scenario, but he could be someone to consider as well. Other defensive linemen, a few more edges. Josh Sweat. I didn't include him with the primary guy. I just think he's going to cost so much money. I think some team is going to throw $20+ million for him on at least a 3-year deal. I'm not that interested in doing that. If the price came down, I would be, but if he gets what people are saying, I'm probably out. DeMarcus Lawrence, 1 or 2 year deal, $10 to $12 million. I would love that move. He's a leader, stops the run really well, good pass rusher. Was banged up last year, but in 2023, he was one of PFF's highest graded edge rushers. Malcolm Kuntz, don't know if he's a scheme fit, but 2 years ago with the Raiders had a breakout season before missing all of last year with an injury. His market will be interesting. Deo Odengbo from the Colts. He's getting a lot of buzz right now. I saw Brad Biggs mention his name. He's long and athletic, could fit the bill of what Dennis Allen is looking for. He was, I think, top 10 in pressures quietly last year for the Colts among edge rushers. I'd have to double-check that. But he's a name to monitor. Azeez Ojulari, I think him and Malcolm Kuntz are more 3-4 guys, but he could be a cheaper option. Dante Fowler had a good season with Washington. Was that a fluke? He had 10 or 11 sacks. He might go back to the Commanders, not sure. Milton Williams, kind of like Josh Sweat. In Williams' case, don't love the scheme fit. Also, I feel like this is a classic overpay situation, which free agency always is, but I think those two guys in general are going to get massively overpaid. B.J. Hill, Tershawn Wharton, Poona Ford. Poona is like an Andrew Billings, just rotate those two guys at nose. That seems pretty fun. Wharton and Hill could be rotation 3-tech guys, so keep an eye on them. Wide receivers, obviously Keenan Allen's not a lot of chatter around him right now. Be curious to see what his market ends up being. Tyler Lockett got released by the Seahawks. He can sign right away, so we'll see if he waits until free agency starts. I thought Demarcus Robinson had a good year with the Rams. He could be kind of a cheaper option, runs good routes, decent blocker. Marquise Brown, not going to block much, but a good speedster. Tim Patrick, opposite, really good blocker. Not going to hit a lot of home runs as a receiving threat, but if you want a guy that's just going to do the dirty work, he'll do that. Could you buy low on a guy like Elijah Moore, a day 2 pick a few years ago? Josh Palmer's always been a solid wide receiver through with the Chargers. He'd be interesting. What does Brandon Cooks have left? Noah Brown, really good blocker. De'Ami Brown had a really good playoff run with Washington, so a couple of Commanders in there as well. Safeties. We've talked about safety some. I think hedging a little bit behind Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker could be a good idea, whether it's in the draft or free agency. 5 names, Jeremy Chin, Julian Blattman. Those 2 guys will probably want to be surefire starters, so if you brought them in, maybe you've convinced or you're pivoting off one of your other guys, either Brisker or Byard. I think Xavier Woods, Quandre Diggs at this point, like you could maybe convince them to be like safety 3 types that are ready to go, obviously. And then DeMar Hamlin, I don't think he's a starter, but played pretty well last year as a starter for the Bills. I think he'd be a high-end 3rd safety, and if you needed him to play in a pinch, he could certainly do that for you. Depth offensive lineman free agents. Morgan Moses has played primarily right tackle, but has gotten some left tackle snaps over the year. He got a clean bill of health the other day, that was reported. So could he be that competition at left tackle for Braxton Jones that Ryan Poles has mentioned? Jed Wills Jr., former first-round pick, he could fit that bill as well. I still like the idea of bringing back Matt Pryor as a high-level backup, can play guard, can play tackle. Dalton Reisner, he's been linked to the Bears before. I think in this Ben Johnson offense where they're going heavier on their interior guys, Reisner would fit that bill as a high-level backup. If he finds a starting job, he would do that. But if not, maybe the Bears make sense. Evan Brown, a name we haven't talked about a ton, has center guard flexibility, bigger guy. Maybe he could fit that stopgap center option as well. He played some center in Seattle, played guard last year with the Cardinals. Actually played pretty well as a guard, but if they brought him in, I wonder if they'd look at him at center. We'd have to wait and see. So there you go. Bunch of free agents. We zeroed in on 5, then obviously rapid fire on some other guys at some notable positions as well. Who will be the first free agent the Bears sign starting on Monday? Obviously, they signed Durham Smythe and all that stuff, but who is going to be the guy once the tampering period opens on Monday that they sign? Let us know who you guys think that is. Appreciate everybody tuning in. It's going to be a hectic week coming up, so subscribe, get your sleep. We'll have you guys covered. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Bear down. All right, we'll hit whatever super chats, beer bong race, then we're out of here. Patrick, trade 10.
2nd, 3rd, and 26th first with all talent draft.
Trade 10. I think he's saying trade 10 to get a 2nd and a 3rd and a 1st next year. I think to get that much, you're trading back pretty far. Yeah. Like, are you trading, or are you just trading out of the first round completely? Maybe that's what he means. I mean, if you don't like the options at 10, sure, but I still don't love the idea of not having a first-round pick this year. Now, you'd have ammo to trade back into the first round, so you could do that, but
if you're – think of it from this perspective, if you're a Bears fan, your hope is this is the last time you will be drafting at number 10 or near 10 in the near or distant future. Like, you're hoping, right, this 10th overall pick, if Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson hit, you're not drafting at 10 anymore. Like, you're hoping that in the future, if everything goes right.
Yeah, so this could be the last time you're picking, like, in a premium slot.
Exactly.
So.
Nailed it.
It's, it's one of those situations. Jane Slater reports that Micah Parsons and the Cowboys are discussing an extension, but there's no sense of urgency. That part in quotes. Classic Cowboys. They're going to slow play that. What is Sperry sending me? He said that Benjamin Albright on a podcast said that the Steelers are eyeballing Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, baby.
That, I'm going to say, is that the report you needed? All right, you want to do this beer bong race, then get out of here?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Shout out to Pieces of Lie and Jacob. Hopefully you guys are still in the chat. Waiting for this beer bong. This is still cold, by the way. At least for mine is.
Oh, it's cold. But it's not frigid.
Frigid, right.
It's not like our lunch earlier that was an hour late. This is 15 minutes late.
God, that was brutal earlier. I was about to pass out in the freaking bullpen.
All right, count us down.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's still cold.
Yeah.
Still cold.
I felt that one. I do prefer warm chugs to cold chugs, I will say.
I will say, though, the straight warm, like, it's one thing if it's a seltzer. Straight warm Coors or Miller, that's tough.
It is.
I think, like, Coors or Miller, like, if it's been out for, like, 45 minutes, would be, like, the sweet spot.
Yeah.
All right. We got to get out of here. We got to rest up. Busy week ahead.
Yeah. Over 2 hours on this live stream, by the way.
Yeah, this is fun.
It's a good time.
Yeah, only like 4X this next Monday. You ready?
Oh, this is a pregame, brother.
You ready?
Oh, come on now.
Colin's ready to go. I'm ready to go. It's going to be a fun week. I'm sure something will happen this weekend. If not, we'll have plenty of content regardless. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Good audience today. You guys are awesome. We will see you guys live for sure on Monday. Who knows before then if something happens. I'll be out of town, but if something crazy happens, I'll go live from my laptop or something. But we got you guys covered. You guys know that. We'll see you guys soon. Bear the hell down. Enjoy your weekend.